Whoa, right. Let me go ahead and get started, guys. So this is kind of what I went over the other day. So you got Black Thursday, you got Black Tuesday, 24th to 29th. 29th was the worst day of all, Black Tuesday. Okay. Coincidentally, my father, Raymond Arthur Ebright, was born on October 21st, 1929, just 8 days before the crash. Okay. Now, my grandfather, Charles Carroll Ebright, lived in Columbus, Ohio, and was a welder. Okay. I don't think my grandfather owned any stock. Okay. So it would take a little while to affect my grandfather and my dad's family, but eventually it would. Okay, so the stock market crash could be used as a cause of the Great Depression. Stock market itself is still around, so it wasn't necessarily the cause, but the cause was the speculation, the gambling in the stock market, not looking at the value of the national product, but looking at the price and trying to get rich quick. That became the problem with the stock market. Lack of regulation as well. Okay, so I have a short video. Used to be able to click on this and it would play a video. Now I just got a video. Okay, so I got a short video on the stock market crash and just kind of, it'll give us, we can kind of segue off of this video and talk a little bit more about it and then move back into the notes.
As the Roaring Twenties were drawing to an end, so too was an era of relative prosperity for many Americans. As early as 1926, the construction of new housing had decreased. Businesses had too much inventory and too few buyers. Nevertheless, an optimistic America wanted to believe that the good times would last forever, pointing to fortunes that were being made on the stock market. Even people with little money to spare wanted in on the action, and stockbrokers readily agreed to sell shares on margin, where they would lend citizens money to buy stock. These investors figured the stock's price was bound to go up and up, allowing them to pay back the stock's original price tenfold. The constantly rising price of stocks cast a spell over the nation. Noon-hour traffic stood still as people eagerly awaited news of their improved finances. Even distinguished Yale University economist Irving Fisher made a bold speculation.
The nation is marching along a permanently high plateau of prosperity.
But the simple fact was that the price paid for many stocks was unduly out of proportion to the actual profitability of the companies who issued them, creating the illusion of increased value. On October 29, 1929, reality finally caught up with the stock market, and what went up came crashing back down. Panicked investors sold 16 million shares in a single day, many for just pennies a share. Millions of other stocks went unsold entirely on that afternoon, known as Black Tuesday. In just a matter of hours, the stock prices took such a nosedive that any gains made over the previous year vanished. The market's collapse was the most distressing downturn in the history of the New York Stock Exchange. So distressing, in fact, a number of investors committed suicide rather than face financial ruin.
Okay, that last little bit there about suicide, yes, it was true that some people were desperate after the fact and did kill themselves. But as the media does, including this media, tries to kind of give you a little bit of a idea that like there was a huge uptick in suicide. So if you look at suicide rates during that time period, there was not a massive increase of suicides because of the stock market. Okay. Did some people do it? Yes. Were some people financially devastated? Absolutely. Okay, so this is the, the other thing that the video brought up was this. Okay, you should write this down. Margin loan. Okay. This is kind of akin. Okay, so guys, I'm thinking about going down to the casino tonight. Or back when, you guys remember we used to have a dog track here? I don't know if you're old enough to remember that. We used to have a dog track. Okay. And let's say I felt really confident about the number 5 dog and the number 5 race. And I only had $100 to put down, but I knew this dog was going to win. So I go down to Intrust Bank and say, hey, I'm going to the dog track tonight. I really want to put some money on this dog. I've only got 100. Can I borrow 900 so I can put 1,000 down on this dog? And when I win, I'll bring that $900 back with interest tomorrow. Is Intrust going to loan me that money? No. But banks were loaning people money to invest in the stock market. Okay, it's crazy. And the margins were crazy as well. So like putting down 20%, borrowing 80%. So when the stock market crashed, all that money that banks had lent out to people to invest in the market, did the banks ever get that money back? No. So people lost their initial investment and then they went into debt with the banks. And this is going to cause some serious problems, as we will probably get to today with something called bank failures. Okay, so move into the notes here on this a little bit. Okay, other underlying problems in the economy in 1929. Okay, already talked about a couple of causes: tariffs, war debts, production outpacing wages. Okay, that's this: worker output outgaining wages. When Hoover told everybody that the economy was sound, that it was fine, he was wrong. Okay, another factor here is unequal distribution of wealth. This is something that we have today as well. Okay, where you have your super rich, and then you have a lot of people living in poverty. Okay, so the top 36,000 wealthiest families in the country had an equal income to the bottom 12 million. So 36,000 versus 12 million, and the bottom 12 million Americans were earning on an average of $1,500 a year when the cost of living was $2,000 a year. If you are living below the cost of living, you are said to be living in what? In poverty. Okay, now, there's about 100 million Americans at this time. So, if you got 12 million living in poverty, you got about 12% of the population living in poverty. Okay? Any idea what that number is today? It's about 1/6 of the population today lives in poverty, which as a percentage would be higher than this. Okay? Obviously, we still have this unequal distribution of wealth. You have super rich. Okay? Now, we have more millionaires than we've ever had. Okay? We have more billionaires than we've ever had. Okay? But you still have about 1/6 of the population living in poverty. So, when the market crashed, who were the people that were mostly investing? Well, that was generally people with money that were investing, wealthy. Okay, any idea what percentage of Americans invest in the stock market today? I think I might have mentioned this last week sometime. It's around half of Americans because of the 401ks. Okay, because that's the number one way that, employers try to help with not pensions, but with retirement, your 401ks, which are generally placed into the stock market. So just over half of Americans are in the market today. That was not the case in 1929. Okay, it was mostly wealthy people that were doing this. Now, as the 20s went on, more and more people got into the market, but the wealthy stopped spending their money. They started hoarding it. Okay, so as you guys know, we're a consumer-driven economy. So if people in this country stop spending money, our economy will go into a tailspin. We have to consume our way forward. Okay, and even with inflation that we have right now, guys, we're still seeing economic growth in this country, and fairly good economic growth. Okay, I think it was 3.2% growth in the last quarter, which for us in the last few decades is pretty darn good. Right? So in this case, though, they're going to stop investing, the wealthy is, in business. They're going to start hoarding their money. They're going to stop spending so much money. Okay, which is going to hurt the economy. And when the middle class is not big enough or strong enough to keep the economy moving through purchasing power, they couldn't buy the products, couldn't afford the products, which meant even more slowdown in our manufacturing, which meant more layoffs, which meant fewer people had money to spend. So it's a downward cycle. You guys can see this, okay? And by 1932, like I said, that's probably the worst year of the Depression, is 32, okay? And so we're going to hit rock bottom. Does that all make sense? Any questions on like that? Come to mind? Okay, so Hoover's only been in office for about 7 months when the market crashes. All right. So other flaws that we've kind of already talked about. Okay, war debts and tariffs. Tariffs drove up the cost of imported goods, making them more expensive. Okay. Then we have a trade war. So we're asking the Europeans to pay back their war debts. At the same time, we're putting tariffs on their goods. Our relations with Europe are not very good. Okay, they're not happy with us. In fact, many European nations will blame the United States for their depressions. So she's not here. Yep. I don't know her door number.
Is he?
I don't know, man.
Probably swords. I did. I have no idea when it was. He doesn't give it any time. At all.
Wait, for what?
It's just like.
Are you an ambassador?
Probably the dog.
Well, Mr. Dodson, but like.
Oh, yeah,
I
that one.
would go now, and you know there you can come back.
You can walk down there. I'm recording this.
Okay.
Yeah. You come back, don't.
We got this person.
Don't die.
Okay.
Good luck.
It's a trap.
Okay. Now, guys, this is a messy one as well. Okay. Holding companies. Let me kind of just give you an example. Henry Ford. He issues some Ford stock. This is prior to the crash, okay? Henry Ford takes this money, selling his own stock. Okay. He takes the money from the sale of his own stock. He invests it in U.S. Steel.
Yeah, you're gonna
The big mess?
get, oh, it's huge.
Will you remind me to talk to you after class? Not about that. Okay. So, Ford takes the money from the sale of his stock, and instead of investing it in Ford Motor Company, he says, I can make more money with this money by investing it in the stock market in U.S. Steel. And so Ford takes the money that you and I gave them to buy their stock, and they invest it in somebody else's stock to get rich. But when the stock market crashes and U.S. Steel's stock value plummets, what happens to that money? Guys, it vanishes. It disappears. It's gone. This is the kind of stuff they were doing. Sell their own stock to buy other stock. And then you look at these businesses, you find out they were doing this, and you're like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be investing in your company, not in other people's companies. And so our confidence in our business leaders, it takes a hit. You know what I mean? Like, what is wrong with you? What are you doing? Money's gone. The value of your stock is gone. So the stock market itself, like I started with today, guys, it was legalized gambling. And guys, people got caught up in the frenzy of it. They wanted to get rich. They saw it going up. They wanted to get on board. Okay. Citizens didn't realize it wasn't the price of the stock you should be looking at, the value of the national product. As I talked about, the video talked about, as early as 1927, we started to see factory orders decrease. Okay, the sales of automobiles decrease. Inventories were rising because they were not selling these goods as they had throughout the mid-20s. But the market kept going up. Okay. Friday, the Dow Jones Industrial Average broke another record. This last Friday. It's going up right now. All-time record. Mr. Ebright is making money. Mrs. Ebright is making money. What goes up must go down. Okay.
So are you gonna pull your, are you gonna sell?
No, I'm not doing anything.
Are you just keeping it forever?
Just keeping it. Just keeping it. Reinvest the dividends. Any dividends that get paid out, they go right back into the market.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I understand? Remember, the stock is only worth what somebody else is willing to pay you for it. Okay? And nobody was buying.
Kind of like Pokemon cards.
What's that?
It's like Pokemon cards, or like trading cards.
Yeah. Just like trading.
It's just imaginary.
Yeah. So what do you do, guys? What do you do? How do you invest? Like, if this scares you, what do you do? Okay, I've got a brother-in-law that is a multi-millionaire, my wife's brother. Okay. And I talked to him like, we always talked about over the last decade that there's going to be inflation at some point, and 3 years ago we saw it. Okay, inflation this year was 3.4% for the year 2023. 3.4%. Now it got as high as 9% in Biden's first year. Okay, and that's where prices went. Right, they're still going up. Prices are still going up. Ones that affect us most is the food and the energy. Okay. Also last week, the United States once again became the largest supplier of oil in the world. Again, Under Trump, it had been that way. We have now worked our way back up to the largest supplier of oil in the world. Okay, which means the more supply of oil we have, prices for energy should go down. Yes? Okay. So as costs have come back down some, they're still rising, but the rate of increase has leveled off. Okay. So what do? How do you protect yourself financially against another stock market crash? Okay. What's that? Somebody said it? Gold is an option. Now, if the crap hits the fan, can you eat that gold? Can't eat gold.
Oh, you mean invest in like those dehydrated food packs that they're advertising, like the Army Circle?
Or maybe some farmland.
Oh,
Maybe some real estate. You follow me on that? So real estate or farmland, you can use to grow food, which is what you need to live. Okay. Gold generally holds its value throughout history. It has. Okay. It's not a bad thing to have. Either is silver. Okay. But you can't eat it. If somebody's not willing to trade that gold farmland, what good is it going to do for you if you can't get food?
People are always gonna want gold for like computer stuff, right?
Gold is valuable for a lot of different things, but yes, it is a conductor. So is silver, so is copper, right? Which is a precious metal. So, yeah, if your only investment is in the stock market, probably need to think about that. Okay, if you think the crap's going to hit the fan. Try not to get into like conspiracy theories and stuff like that. But I don't know if I talked to you guys about the energy grid. Our energy grid is very vulnerable in this country, okay, to hackers and just to physical terrorism, okay. So,
How do you steal energy?
huh?
How do you steal energy?
How do you steal it?
Yeah.
plug in an extension.
From the sun and the wind.
China puts a giant solar panel above the U.S.
Do any of you guys have solar panels at your house?
Got one in the camper.
You got one on camp?
Oh,
Does it work pretty good?
Oh, yeah.
So you have a battery, like a generator?
The 100 amp hour deep cycle lithium battery.
Okay. So it will store energy.
Just yeah.
So they do make solar generators now. Which is basically a battery and the solar will charge the
Oh,
battery.
you mean like one of the battery pack? Yeah, we've got one. We've got two of those.
Yeah.
Addition.
Can it be charged by solar?
Do you have a Star?
So you'll be able to plug in your phone if the crap hits the fan.
Yeah.
And a fan.
Yeah, no, crap, it's the fan. I'm going off grid. You won't see me.
Yeah.
I'm going on the grid.
Look for a gray teardrop.
Okay. So Hoover takes action. What is Hoover willing to do? Now, before I get into this too much, I want to talk to you about Herbert Hoover, okay, as a human being. All right, because this is going to impact what he is willing to do and what he is not willing to do to help people during the Depression. Now, historians generally blame Hoover for the Depression. Okay? Is that totally fair? Probably not. But that's the way things work. Who are we blaming for the record inflation? Biden. Okay? Who are we blaming for the record immigration? Okay? Who has overseen 3.2% growth in 2023? Biden. Okay? There are some really good economic indicators out there for President Biden. I think we've talked about this. But the fact remains, we all go to the grocery store. We all go to the fast food restaurants. We all go to the restaurants. And everything is more expensive than it's ever been. So we'll see how people vote in November on the economy. Okay. Hoover was orphaned as a child. Both of his parents were dead by the age of 12. Okay. But he was a very bright young man. Okay. He put himself through Stanford and he studied engineering. One of the nicknames of Herbert Hoover was many people called him the great engineer. Once he graduated from Stanford, after he put himself through, he worked his way through. He started his own mining company and became a self-made millionaire. Okay, so going from being an orphan to a self-made millionaire. During World War I, Hoover, who was very wealthy by that time, took his own money and he went over to Europe and set up aid camps for victims of World War I, medical camps, aid camps, so people could be fed, people could receive health care from the war. He did this with his own money. Okay, Herbert Hoover was a good man and a self-made man and very selfless. Gave a lot to charity. Okay, but his view of the role of government is tempered by his own experiences. Hoover believed if I could do it, anybody can do it. The role of the national government, guys, prior to the Depression is very small. The relationship that the ordinary citizen had with the national government was negligible. The only thing and the only interaction you had with the federal government was when you went to the post office, because it was the United States Postal Office. And the Constitution actually talked about that the national government could set up postal offices all across the country and build postal roads to move mail from one place to another. Which eventually would become our interstate highway system. You guys remember the Pony Express? Okay, so the only other contact you would have with the national government is if you were in the armed services. If you were in the Army, the Navy, the Marines. That would be the only contact you see somebody in a uniform. The national government just didn't do much. And so when this happened, Hoover is limited in what he's going to use the national government for. Okay? You saw that a little bit in that Smithsonian video I showed you of Coolidge. Coolidge didn't like to spend money. Neither did Hoover. So he called on cities, states, and charities to help feed the hungry. He brought business leaders into the White House and said, listen, you need to keep your wages up. Try not to lay people off. We need those jobs and we need those wages so consumers can purchase things and we can buy our way out of this economic slowdown. They called for a tax cut so that people would have more money in their pockets to spend. Did you remember what the wealthy tax rate was by 1924? They lowered it. Remember Mellon? Under Harding, they lowered it. Income tax down to 25% for the wealthy, which means everybody else is paying less than that. So what kind of tax cut is going to make a big? You don't have a lot of room to even cut taxes because they're already low. Mellon, who's the Secretary of what? You'll need to know that for this test and
Sure.
future tests. He's the Secretary of Treasury with two L's, Mellon. Takes the traditional approach. If a business cannot survive in this environment, it goes out of business. Okay? The government is not going to bail out these businesses. If you can't stand the heat, get out the kitchen. Purge the rottenness from the system. So if you're an automaker, your name is not Henry Ford or General Motors. A lot of them went under. The government didn't bail them out. Now, you guys that had me for government last semester, or even this semester, talk about bailouts for big businesses by our government. General Motors, 2010. AIG, the large multinational corporation, $85 billion. General Motors, $50 billion. Government bailed them out. After 9/11, we bailed out the airlines because the airlines lost billions of dollars. So the government took your taxpayer money and gave it to the airlines, bailing them out. Okay, that's the world we live in today. Remember these words? Too big to fail. Too many people will lose their job. So the government's going to use our tax dollars to bail out these businesses that have run themselves into the ground. That's not going to happen here. The big brother government's not going to come in and save the day. And so Hoover will get blamed for not doing more. You follow me? But that goes back to his experience, his life experience. And he will be the last president of the United States. The last president to behave in that manner. Okay. This becomes a familiar sight in our cities all across America. This, of course, is a soup kitchen. Okay, those of you that may have served down at the Lord's Diner, similar to that. Just there's a bunch more. So, Hoover's going to try and help in certain areas. But there's always a key word here that you're going to see. It's right here, this word right here. Hoover will loan you money, but he's not going to give you something for nothing. You're not going to get bailed out. Follow me. Okay? So in almost all of these ideas that Hoover comes up with, you will see the word loan next to it, within it. The first of these was to try and help our farmers. Now, the farmers were not struggling yet with growing food. We had plenty of food. It's just that the prices were so dang low for the farmers, they couldn't make a profit. So, the Agricultural Marketing Bill creates the Federal Farm Board. They're going to come up with $500 million to loan to farmers to market their crops. What does that mean? To sell their crops. Now, we're in a trade war with Europe at this point, and Europe has put tariffs on our farm goods. So our farmers trying to export, which today is our #1 export, food, are having trouble selling their food. Goal is to keep farm prices up. In the end, the government ended up buying most of this food. And they lost $185 million on it. So this did not work. So in 1931, you can see a bushel of wheat goes from $1 a bushel to 61 cents a bushel. If you're a farmer in this part of the country, this is devastating. Price of cotton drops by more than 50%. Textiles, 16 cents a pound to 6 cents a pound. Devastating. So, what's the answer to this problem? More tariffs. What's wrong?
They went away.
They went away. So Hoover goes to Congress. Says, we need to help the textile industry. We need to help the cotton farmers. And he asks for a revision on the textile tariff. He wants to prevent textiles from other countries coming in and undercutting our farmers and our textile industry. So he wants a revision on the tariff on textiles to help this industry, to boost them. Everybody with me? I understand that process. And what Congress comes back with, guys, he asked for this from Congress. And what they come back with, guys, is something called the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act. Hawley-Smoot? Anyone?
Oh, yeah.
Anyone? Bueller? Bueller?
And Corient.
Adam Lee,
Here.
Adamowski, Adamson,
Here.
Adler. Here. Anderson. Anderson. Here. Bueller. 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 Bueller.
He's sick. My best friend's sister's boyfriend's brother's girlfriend heard from this guy who knows this kid who's going with the girl who saw Ferris pass out at 31 Flavors last night. Guess it's pretty serious.
Thank you, Simone.
No problem whatsoever.
Fry. In 1930, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the, anyone? The Great Depression, passed the, anyone? The tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which, anyone raised or lowered? Raised tariffs in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone? Anyone know the effects? It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression. Today, we have a similar debate over this. Anyone know what this is, class? Anyone? Anyone seen this before? The Laffer curve. Anyone know what this says? It says that at this point on the revenue curve, you will get exactly the same amount of revenue as at this point. This is very controversial. Does anyone know what Vice President Bush called this in 1980? Anyone? Some.
Know what it feels like.
That's what it feels like some days. The Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act. Now, this actor's name is Ben Stein. You may have seen him in some commercials and so forth. he's not just an actor, he's a Harvard-educated economist. And when he was cast for this role in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, how many guys have seen this movie? Okay. They said, hey, just be the boring history teacher and talk about something boring. And so Ben Stein, this was not scripted. He talked about the Holy Smooth Tariff Act, okay, that nobody's heard of or remembers, okay. And so I wanted to show you that. It is going to put tariffs on thousands of items, guys. And within 17 months of this legislation, trade, imports and exports in the United States will be cut in half, sending this country into a deeper and deeper depression. Okay. So there you go. I'll put those notes up on Tuesday. Okay. So hope you enjoyed that. But there are days when I look out there, like today, kind of. You guys are dead. It's a Monday. And that's what I see.